Peak and Roll Podcast with Brady Trantham.
Viewer discretion advised.
Oklahoma. You believe all the shit you read?
The audience is now deaf.
What a game, what a game, what a game, everybody. That was exactly why the NBA isn't so fun to not only cover, but just to watch as a fan. It was, credit to the Thunder for even being able to come back in that game when it looked like they were going to get run out of the gym by 15 or 20 the entire game. It was exciting. It was a great 9:30 tip-off. It was a great way to end the night. And, here we are. I was planning on maybe doing the next episode of the Peak and Roll podcast tonight, actually. Tonight being later after the Pelicans game, because I'm recording this episode at 2 in the morning. So I thought since the game was so exciting, might as well just go ahead and pump out another episode and just kind of talk about what we all got to see and what we all got to witness. So to everybody that doesn't know my name, once again, this is the Peak and Roll podcast on ThunderDigest.com. My name is Brady Trantham. And yeah, you're just going to be stuck with me tonight. Nobody else is either awake or everybody is a little too busy at the moment to jump on the show. So yeah, you're just going to be stuck with me tonight. So what do we got here? The Thunder lose 127-124 in an exciting game. Gary Harris hits the big three at the end in a tie ball game for the Nuggets to escape with a victory in a game where they pretty much dominated for the first half and even deep into the third quarter, where I think they got the lead as big as 20. And yeah, it's amazing. Credit to the all bench unit for basically saying, Russ is kind of bad from the floor tonight, shooting wise. Paul George is hot, but it's kind of hard when one guy is out there making shots and the opponent is just seemingly cannot miss from the floor. Melo, he played, and the Twitter account tweeted this out tonight, but he played a lot, and when I stop and think about it, I can't really remember any big meaningful plays or big meaningful possessions with Melo out there. So I think he finished with 10 points, but we'll get into all that, but I'll just run through some numbers right now because there are plenty of numbers from this game. It was really fascinating. Paul George, 43 points. I think in the first half he had 15 points, or 15 or 16 points, and he finished the second half with 28 points. I mean, the guy was 19 of 26 from the floor, 5 of 8 from the three-point line. And this is all kind of funny because plus-minus numbers are always, they're always kind of, I've already said funny once, so I'm going to try to think of another word. They're interesting. Plus-minus numbers are always interesting because for as great as Paul George was, and if it wasn't for his play, the Thunder have no business coming back into the ball game. He finished as a -2 on the floor. Russell Westbrook was a rebound away from a triple-double, and it was kind of a weird game from Russ. He struggled from the floor in the first half. I think at one point he had 2 points and 12 assists, I believe either deep in the first quarter or early on in the second quarter. He finishes with 20 points, 21 assists, one off from his career high, I believe, is 22. He's had 22 a few times. And he also finished as a -8. Nikola Jokic with the Denver Nuggets finished with a triple-double, actually, with 29 points, 14 assists, and 13 rebounds. He had probably the biggest rebound of the night on Denver's second-to-last possession where he basically tipped the ball up in the air, got the rebound, and forced Russell Westbrook to foul him, sending him to the foul line. I think at that point the Thunder had a chance to get the rebound, take the lead, and probably for good at that point. Jamal Murray just blew up, and I'm sure by now everybody has seen poor old Steven Adams get just crossed up. Bless his heart. Jamal Murray finishes with 33 points, and of course, I said at the top of the show, Gary Harris hits the big shot, 3-point shot, finishes with 25 points, the game winner. And it was a game, like I said, that the Thunder really had no business coming back into. And if it wasn't for Paul George and the bench. I mean, kudos to the bench, especially Jerami Grant. I think in the third quarter, the Thunder were down by as much as 20 points. I think that was the game high deficit. The Nuggets cracked 100 points early on in the third quarter, I believe. They were just on fire from start to finish. They couldn't miss from the 3-point line. They were getting penetration when they wanted it. They're just, the Thunder are still trying to figure out how to defend perimeter athletes without Andre Robertson. Paul George, for as great as a defender as he is, his other running mate is going to be Russell Westbrook, and we all know his defensive prowess. When he's on, he's on. But most of the time, 7 out of 10 possessions, Russell's going to be Russell on the defensive end, and we'll just kind of leave it at that. Paul George definitely played a huge role in getting the Thunder back and getting the Thunder into a position to win the game. But, I thought that this game was really a showcase for the bench unit, and especially Jerami Grant. And I kind of tweeted this out about a few hours ago. Over the last few games, and maybe over the last 2 weeks to be specific, Jerami Grant has really increased his value. And it's kind of fascinating because we are about a week out of the trade deadline. A lot of stuff has already happened. A lot of players have been on the move. A lot of franchises have been busy trying to shore up their lineups. The Thunder have been mentioned with, in some talks or in some, and just basically being mentioned for players like Tyreke Evans, Greg Monroe, where I don't think Tyreke Evans is going to be a realistic possibility. But, the second I say that on this show, it'll probably become a thing. Greg Monroe, I think, is either going to end up with the Pelicans or Boston, probably New Orleans because of the starting role. I believe Monroe is from New Orleans, but, other than that, we don't want to get too far into the trade deadline. This is specifically about the Denver game, but Jerami Grant, midway through the third quarter on, and then early on into the fourth, that guy he put the team on his back. There were 3 straight possessions where he had the ball and just drove to the basket and got fouled, and was really exceptional from the foul line and slowed the game down, allowed the team to kind of catch their breath, allowed Denver to kind of cool off from the field, and slowly chip away at that 20-point lead. I believe going into the fourth quarter, the Nuggets had a 15-point lead, and the bench unit was able to get the deficit down to 10 before Russell Westbrook was able to come in. Then slowly Paul George and Carmelo Anthony filtered back in as well with Steven Adams. It was really, really exciting, and it was a game that you never really felt comfortable as a Thunder fan, or even just as somebody covering the team. You never really felt comfortable in saying, the Thunder actually have a legit shot at winning this game until it actually happened. I mean, the Thunder just chipped away and chipped away and chipped away. Paul George played great defensively. Steven Adams played great defensively down the stretch. Russell Westbrook even made a few plays defensively down the stretch to basically get the game into a position for the Thunder to win it. And Paul George just could not miss. It was amazing. It was like a Kevin Durant game. I mean, the guy is incredibly efficient, and he's slow. I don't want to say slowly because he's been like this for the last month or so. He has just been an efficient assassin on the court. Russell Westbrook and Paul George are quite the pair, and I think we're finally starting to see the true potential of a dynamic duo like Paul George and Russell Westbrook being on the same team. Paul George hits the big three-pointer with 1.4 seconds left. Step back three, crosses man over, hits the big shot to tie the game at 124, seemingly to send it into overtime. And I'll get into my thoughts on that in just a second, because there is, of course, something very, very, very big at hand with just how the game ended. Take out the whole Gary Harris thing, the Gary Harris game-winning shot. We need to talk about Nikola Jokic's pass in to even set up the Gary Harris game-winning shot, because it's been quite the topic of discussion on Twitter, quite the topic of discussion on even on the TNT broadcast afterwards. these 5-second rules, it's always so hard because, just from watching basketball, especially in the NBA, the ref will hand the guy the ball, and it seems like it takes him even a second or a second and a half to even start counting. So while it's called the 5-second rule, in reality, it's damn near a 6 or 7 second rule. So, you kind of have that in your head, but even still, that still felt like an eternity that Jokic had the ball. And I'm still unclear. I've read the rule. I've looked it up. I've looked up the rule on if you're able to move or if you have some type of leeway, whether it's a few feet here or there. But Jokic definitely took steps in order to make that pass. The Thunder had incredible frontline defense to keep the ball from going even onto the court. Russell's going to get torn to shreds for basically just camping out under the basket. But according to Billy Donovan in the post game, his responsibility was to do just that and to thwart an attempt at a tip in near the rim. And he just had the unfortunate. He just kind of had the unfortunate aspect of being the closest guy to Gary Harris. And to his credit, he closed out quite quickly. And I mean, you've probably seen that game-winning shot photo from the Denver Nuggets Twitter account. I mean, Russell is just a breath away from blocking that shot. So, I mean, rightfully torn to shreds, but I guess he was trying to do his job at the same time, or fulfill his responsibility at least. So, whoever's fault that is on, Russell's or Billy Donovan's for the play design, who cares? I mean, Harris made a great shot. You just kind of move on. You kind of just move on with your life. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the L2M report tomorrow morning. It looks like it's going to be another case where the Thunder get screwed in a last-second possession to either to go into overtime or to win a game. I mean, everybody's going to go back to the Karl Anthony Towns moving screen when Andrew Wiggins hit the half-court banked-in shot for the Timberwolves to beat the Thunder early on in the year, and then, of course, the Giannis Antetokounmpo game-winning shot where he swung around Josh Hustis on the baseline, and his foot clearly stepped out of bounds, but it wasn't a reviewable play, so sadly the Thunder just had to take the L that night, and it looks like it's going to be another one of those cases where the Thunder just have find themselves on the unfortunate end of a few missed calls, and this is all not to mention that Jerami Grant gets decapitated on just all the players running through screens, and that's pretty much what set up Gary Harris to be wide the hell open on the elbow for that game-winning shot. I actually noticed that in real time watching the game. I noticed it, and the first thing that popped in my head was the Brooklyn Nets game a few weeks ago where Paul George he pretty much just tackled Spencer Dinwiddie, and there was no whistle, and it allowed Russell to go around the defense and go straight to the hoop for the game-winning lay-in. So I guess that kind of balances itself out, but we're still left with Jokic having the ball for about 6.5 to 7 seconds just from my count. So it is what it is. The Thunder, this game is kind of hard to grade because, it was a game that the Thunder really had no business even coming back into, let alone winning. So you've got to credit them for fighting, and it was mainly up to the bench. The bench is what made this all possible. Jerami Grant, Raymond Felton had some nice penetration possessions where he was able to finish at the rim. Patrick Patterson had a timely shot to put the deficit at 10 before the starters came back in. Alex Abrinas actually had a nice game, 13 points. He was 2 for 5 from the three-point line, but he looked a lot more aggressive, and I think there is some credence to him telling, I believe it was Brett Dawson, it might have been Eric Horn, but it was on the Thunder Buddies podcast where I'm going to go ahead and say Brett. I think Brett talked to him prior to the Wizards game, and Abrinas basically said, I've been dealing with some knee soreness and ankle injury, but I'm finally really close to 100%. And he kind of looked like his old self. I mean, I've been a little critical of him over the last month and a half, and maybe a lot of that can be attributed to the injury that he had been dealing with. So it was a nice thing to see just the bench be able to put the starters on their back for a good portion of the game when it just really seemed like the Nuggets were just going to run the Thunder out of the gym. But, the more and more I think about it, I'm actually, if I'm the Thunder, obviously you want to get the win. You're a competitor. You don't want to lose any game, especially a game like that where you're getting destroyed. You come back and you have a chance to go into overtime and actually steal a game that was probably a loss going into the first quarter, going into the second quarter, But the more and more I think about it, this was a 9:30 tip-off in Denver. The Thunder had to immediately turn around, fly back to Oklahoma City, and get ready for Anthony Davis and the Pelicans less than 24 hours later. So to play another 5 minutes of basketball in a game like that, especially if the bench doesn't cut the lead to 10 or even to if it's 15 or more, I really think Billy Donovan probably just waves the white flag and lets the bench kind of finish the game out and just says, I don't want the chance to lose 3 games in a row, 2 games in 2 nights, going back to the Wizards game, and then this past night with the Nuggets, and then tomorrow night with the Pelicans. You don't want to risk that, so you want to save Russell Westbrook, Paul George, Carmelo Anthony for the second night of the back-to-back. So I guess there can be some optimism in looking at it that way. The Thunder will be a little bit more rested than they could have been if that Gary Harris shot doesn't go in. Who knows if the Thunder are able to win in overtime regardless. But yeah, it was a really fun game. It was actually a game that I was actually bartending tonight, and we were dead around halftime. So I didn't really get a chance to watch much of the first half, and apparently all I had to do was look at the box score and just notice that Denver was red hot from the 3-point line and seemingly couldn't miss. It's another game where the Thunder just miss Andre Robertson, and it's another example of, if this team is going to continue on that level of play that they had during that 8-game winning streak where it looked like, everything was starting to click offensively and defensively, they're going to have to figure out a way to manufacture good defensive play on the perimeter because, this is, the second game in a row. I know Bradley Beal didn't necessarily have a great game scoring-wise. I think he only had 21 points, but he seemed to have a lot of good possessions in crunch time. And then tonight, Jamal Murray just goes off. And, when was the last time? I can't remember the last time I've even thought, Jamal Murray had a really great game from the floor, 33 points, and made every big shot that he was asked to make. I don't really recall ever being able to say that. So it's just another game where the Thunder just missed Andre Robertson. And if that's gonna be the difference between this team being a 4th seed or at the very most a 3rd seed. If it's going to be the difference between that and a 5th seed with little to no chance of having any optimism in the playoffs, then that's going to be a really, 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 really big shame. Just because we're starting to see something really, really cool with Paul George and Russell Westbrook. It's really starting to come together, and it's really starting to become something that Thunder fans are going to be a little bit nervous once we get closer and closer to the end of the season when Paul George's decision will be coming up because it's shades of Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. Paul George is showing that he can be an efficient volume scorer, and he made big shot after big shot tonight, and it was kind of beautiful to watch to see another guy not named Russell Westbrook be the guy in a big game. And I think it was the first time since January of 2016 that a player not named Russell Westbrook scored more than 40 points for the Thunder. So especially after last year where Russell Westbrook pretty much, you'd see box scores with Russell Westbrook having 43 points, Steven Adams with 9 points, Victor Oladipo with 12 points. It was just a really unbalanced box score. And now you've got Russ and Paul George just kind of going at it. And for as, disappointing as Melo has been over the last few games, Melo is always due to go off at any point. The guy is incredibly talented. He's one of the best offensive players in league history. So it's just nice to have that as your third option. So, again, the Thunder, at the beginning of the year just could not figure out offense. They could not figure out how to put the ball through the hoop. And they have certainly figured that out now. But with the loss of Andre Robertson, it seems like their defense is just going to have to take a little. It's going to be a little bit of a work in progress, and if they're not careful, they're going to. They've got the Pelicans tonight at the Chesapeake Energy Arena. If they're not careful, they could find themselves, after an 8-game winning streak, have a 3-game losing streak, and it's just, it just can happen like that. And it's a work in progress, but the Thunder need to figure it out really, really quickly. But other than that, it was quite the interesting night. I'm trying to see if I had anything else. I think that pretty much covers it. It's going to be interesting to see what Thunder Twitter is like tomorrow when the L2M report comes out. I don't know. I don't really know how I feel about an L2M report. I know what it's there for, and I appreciate the thought from the NBA to at least appear transparent. I mean, I do respect that. That takes a lot of balls as a league, as an organization, to basically throw something out there that can show that your officials are making the wrong calls. But, I still appreciate it. But at the same time, what does it really prove? What does it really do for the game? I think if you're just thinking about it from the Thunder standpoint, Sam Presti, Clay Bennett, I wonder if they're just sending, emails to the league offices saying, you guys, we have come up on the short end of the stick far too many times this season, and we've got, 3 marquee players, and if the difference between being the 4 seed is 2 or 3 games, and we have these on our resume, these losses that have come as a result of some unfortunate calls from the officials, it's gonna be disappointing, but it is what it is. The Thunder need to start figuring out how to win these games. I mean, they had a good stretch during December and January where the games that they were losing by single digits in the beginning of the part of the year, they were starting to win those, and then they started crushing opponents, and it seems like they've kind of forgotten how to win close games now. But this was kind of a weird game. This was going to be there's a lot of positives you can kind of derive from it. It's not necessarily a moral victory by any means. Like I keep saying, like I keep trying to preach to everybody, 82 game season. You have to look at the season through 10 game clumps. So you can take a lot from this. I mean, it was a very, very good sight to see, especially after the way the second half of the Wizards game went, where Paul George only had 2 shots attempted the rest of the half and no looks at all in the fourth quarter. It was really nice to see Russell just basically cross half court and say, "Here you go, dude, just go take it." And he made it work. So that was a really nice thing to see. This team definitely, when they say they want to correct something, this team definitely goes out there and shows it. So Antonio Daniels saying that this team was about talk. At the time, I agreed 100%. But it's kind of been flipped on its head now. The Thunder are, when they know their strengths, they know their weaknesses, and they go out there every single night and they at least try to correct the sins of yesterday to basically eke out a win the following night. So yeah, the Thunder got to turn around really quickly. They got a tough matchup against Anthony Davis, who seems to always have a great game against the Thunder. Of course, they're going to be without Boogie Cousins, who is lost for the year with a ruptured Achilles, which, it's such a damn shame. A ruptured Achilles is probably the worst injury you can, as an athlete, that you could have, especially nowadays. It's one of those injuries. It's like tearing your ACL back in the 80s, when tearing your ACL was damn near a career-ending injury, whereas nowadays it's a season-ending injury, but you can always come back from it 100%. Rupturing your Achilles, that's a different story. I mean, Kobe did it, and then his career was pretty much done. So all thoughts and prayers out to Boogie for a strong recovery, because he's exciting to watch. He's even more exciting to talk about and write about. So there is that, and I do believe I saw the tweet about 10 minutes before I went on that that Mirotic will not be with the Pelicans tomorrow night. I don't think he'll be able to suit up, so the Pelicans will be without him. No Tony Allen, obviously, who was traded to the Bulls, who will probably be bought out by Chicago, and somebody that Thunder Twitter was kind of interested in earlier today to possibly be a buyout guy to, replace Andre Robertson, but I think that's been squashed by now by all by the Thunder intelligentsia on Twitter. I'll definitely be ready to either do a video recap tomorrow or a podcast in the arena tomorrow night after the game. I'll be there for Thunder Digest. Eric G will also be in the arena in attendance with me as well, so we'll have double duty. So I'm looking forward to that. But that's just going to do it for me. It was such a great game. It was such an exciting night that as soon as I got off work, I was driving home thinking, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and do a solo podcast. I think it'd probably be a good idea. So, you got 25 minutes of me talking about it. So I guess that'll just have to do for now. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get some sleep. Got a big day tomorrow. Got to get ready for the Pelicans game. Got to get all that stuff situated, get all the plans written out, and try and get you guys as much content as possible. So everybody, thank you so much for sitting through this with just me for the last 25 minutes. If you haven't noticed by now, we are finally on Stitcher. So Android users, shout out to you guys. I know a few of you have asked me in the past if we were able to do this. We finally figured out how to get on Stitcher. So thank God. I really appreciate you guys asking about the show. I really appreciate you guys, trying to find different ways in order to listen to the show. I'm probably going to try and start putting these on YouTube just to make it easier on everybody that doesn't have, X or Y smartphone that can only listen to podcasts through this type of application. So I'll probably start doing that just to make it easy on everybody. But again, thank you everybody for listening to the Peek and Roll podcast. Subscribe to the show on whatever application you're listening to. And if you have a little time, I would definitely appreciate from the bottom of my heart if you guys left a review. It'd help the show out immensely. Just something generic. It doesn't have to be a 400 word soliloquy on why you love or hate the show. It could just be a little quick 2-word sentence why you like the show or why you don't like it. But any type of feedback I really appreciate. So just if you have the time, just go ahead and do that, and it'd help the show out a lot and help me out a lot. So again, everybody, thank you so much for listening to the Peek and Roll podcast. But I'm just gonna make my bed and go to sleep and get ready for the Pelicans game tomorrow. So for the Peek and Roll podcast, this is Brady Trantham. Thunder up, everybody.
I got a feeling, and the Thunder win! Hey, how about that chicken salad out of chicken something else?
We are the Stash Bros, and we approve this
podcast.